Lunar Mission 1.
3, 2, 1.
And now for something you may have heard absolutely nothing about yet, but you're about to. The fourth sign. And I'm not going to tell you anything about it either. I'm going to leave you to hear about that from a man who's been active in astronautics for 35 years, a fellow and past president of the British Interplanetary Society. Please welcome Mark Hempsall, and also he's joined by David Iron.
What we should just say is that the fourth sign is David's idea, so he's going to tell you about it.
And then Mark will tell you about how the BIS is going to help us solve it. This is something that's been mentioned online since our Kickstarter, and personally I think it's our most intriguing idea. We are laying down something that could survive 1 billion years. That is a long, long time. Will it always be known about? It only needs to be forgotten once. And then what? Who might find our archive? Will it be an evolved humankind? Perhaps in 65 million years' time, it's an intelligent species of insect, perhaps, or extraterrestrial intelligence. Begs the question, are we alone? Of course, nobody really knows, but scientists have been estimating professionally the likelihood of us being alone or not for half a century now, using what's called the Drake equation, after Professor Drake. Unfortunately, there are a couple of very, very difficult parameters to get a handle on. The variabilities are enormous. But the researchers in the field are coming round to the increasing likelihood that we are indeed not alone, as we discover more and more about planetary science and get closer to discovering some basic molecules that take out some of the guesswork. The trouble is, even with the most optimistic scenarios in which the galaxy is teeming with life, active communications, when we transmit messages or listen to them, is very, very difficult. The huge distances involved, the likelihood of detection, the degradation of signal power, and the need to focus energy in a narrow direction, otherwise you won't get the power focused in. The coincidence of transmission and reception. A receiver has to be pointing in the opposite direction at the same time to pick up the transmission. And the time it takes for signals to travel, let alone the time it might take to travel by spacecraft. All these make SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, very difficult indeed. And besides, do we want to advertise our presence? There are arguments both ways. We, Lunar Mission 1, being somewhat innovative, turn this thinking on its head. We may not have to do anything. Our sun is an enormously powerful source of radiation, detectable from most of the Milky Way galaxy, and constantly radiating over a timescale sufficient for interstellar travel, detection and travel within the galaxy. They're one of many. There are about 300 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy. It's an interesting size and stage of life. Just as our astronomers down the ages have studied stars, our sun we can expect to be studied. The sun is a sign, our first sign. And just as we are picking up exoplanets, planets around other stars, with the prospect soon of detecting atmospheres that could indicate basic life, a remote investigation of our sun should pick up its planets, and our Earth presents distinguishable properties of carbon-based life potential. Human activity may itself add to our detectability. The Earth is our second sign. Life is sufficiently rare to justify, we presume, an investigative mission of some kind at some stage. Coming to investigate the Earth would identify the Moon and its preservation qualities arising from its lack of geological life or movement. The moon is our third sign. But our extraterrestrial intelligence needs a final guide or pointer to the spot at the lunar South Pole where our archive can be found. We need a fourth sign. So we want something viable that directs the attention of a future spacefaring intelligence that has begun to investigate the moon to the precise location of the Lunar Mission 1 archive without assuming prior knowledge of its existence, and which is capable of persisting over the potential lifetime of the archive. Lunar Mission 1 does not have a plan for the fourth sign, or fourth signs. What should it be? So let's have a competition, and let's make it worldwide. It would need to include several areas of study, and we could let anyone take part. It's easy to start, but difficult to finish. It could run throughout the 10 years of the project as a competition, except that any change to the Lunar Mission 1 itself will need to be approved in just 3 years, because that's when we close down the requirements for the mission. So included in the mission requirements, it needs to be decided in 3 years. This sign could take any form of information provision. But let's place a reasonable constraint that it should be built by the end of this century, and that means we can assume a manned base nearby to help. To be viable, it's got to work in a number of ways. It's got to work for a discoverer. So how might that happen? It's got to work to the known laws of science. It's got to be buildable with credible engineering. It's got to have a business case for financing. No funding, no fourth sign. Remember that. And let's give it that inspirational element to make us feel good while it's made. 5 requirements. It's got to work for a discoverer, it's got to work to science, it's got to work to engineering, it's got to work to financing, and it's got to work to us. What we want to consider is some kind of media-based competition, something perhaps we can get to work in one country, and then we can let others take that format and customize it for their own local culture. So those with any media connections, please start making them. To help plan all of this, we're being joined by the British Interplanetary Society, who have that mix of ideas and engineering practicality that fits the fourth sign really well. And here to introduce them is Mark Hempsel, who is soon to become its president.
Thank you, David. I've got to say, when Dave first came to us and asked us if we would like to take this on, the whole council were absolutely delighted, and not only to be involved in Lunar Mission 1, but also specifically for this fourth sign. I think we're probably uniquely qualified to take on the role. We have a heritage of forward thinking, of which we're very proud, and it includes a lot of world-breaking leading work in studies on interstellar flight and the consequences of extraterrestrial intelligence. Started in the 1970s with the famous Project Daedalus, if you know that. More recently, we've also been able to make pieces of hardware that are space qualified and indeed have flown. So we have the complete range from the inspirational, imaginational vision about what this could be, all the way up to the capability of realizing it, as long as it doesn't get too big and fancy. But we aren't going to be doing the sign. As Dave's just pointed out, what we're going to do is help the Lunar Mission 1 team produce these competitions. And I'm going to use the word plural because I think we're going to have many more than one competition, and I think we're going to have many more than one fourth sign. The competitions are an opportunity for anybody of whatever age or expertise to engage their ingenuity. It can be grandiose, it can be subtle, it can be clever, it can even be obvious, but above all, it's not going to be boring. I should also say that we are not planning on doing this all ourselves. We are going to try and engage our fellow organisations around the world to turn this into a worldwide venture to find the best fourth sign and have some fun solving this particular challenge.